Welcome to Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas, the go-to podcast for aspiring and seasoned leaders in the quick service restaurant industry. Each week, we serve up actionable insights and proven strategies to help you lead smarter, build stronger teams, and elevate operations. Whether you're taking your first steps into leadership or refining your expertise, we're here to fuel your growth and spark big ideas. Let's dig in.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas. I'm one of your hosts, Riley Shine. With me is
Eric Jaworski. It's good to be back with you.
It is. These weeks just keep flying by. I tell you what, this is so much fun.
It is. It is. It's exciting to be a part of this and to just get some feedback. Like I've been hearing from some people. They're starting to enjoy the show, listeners, and hopefully we'll continue elevating everyone's talent as well as ours.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're all on a journey, a leadership journey, and that's the fun part about all of this. So thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for joining us this week, and we're glad you're here.
Yeah, we are. And so you've been reading a book.
I have.
Listening to a book.
Yes, listening to a book. I'm not a big reader.
Sure.
Even in college, I would just skim the pages and couldn't retain it. So yes, I'm listening to an audiobook. A couple weeks ago, you suggested The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And so I grabbed that audiobook and I've been listening to it, and it's been a good listen. I enjoy it so far.
Okay. Any takeaways? Yeah, I know you're just kind of getting into it.
Yeah. Couple good takeaways. The first one that sticks out to me is so obviously there's 4 disciplines that they talk about in the book. The first one really spoke to me because of our whirlwind and our day job and how crazy it is.
Yeah.
It's focus. And as leaders, it's really hard for us to truly focus on what matters.
Yeah.
Because we're distracted by all the other stuff.
It is. You're going to enjoy it. It's a really good read. I think it's an easy read, right? It talks about those wildly important goals and, just trying to focus on small wins that ultimately snowball into big, giant wins.
Yeah, and staying focused on it and being able to keep that front of mind while you're operating your business or your restaurant or whatever that is. So it's really great.
So I picked up a new book, too.
I was just going to ask you, what are you listening, or what are you watching? What are you watching, reading, listening to, Eric?
Yeah, so I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it was funny because I was listening to this podcast that I kind of just got hooked onto, and it ended up having Ryan Leak on it as a guest.
Okay.
And I remembered him because he used to go to our church. He had a couple of guest spots in our church. So I picked up his book, for those of you that can see, right, picked up Leveling Up. And it talks about there's 12 questions to elevate your personal and professional development. And what's funny is as we were kind of putting this episode together, I know we were looking at confidence and what that takes and how do we help people grow their confidence. But it talks about these becoming a better version of yourself. So he broke it down into 5 of these different insurances, right? Being strategic about what that is and what that looks like as you're building your confidence. And it's not that we're going to dive into all of this stuff, but irrelevancy, ego, comparison, offense insurance, as well as roller coaster insurance. So
that sounds interesting.
It was.
You shared it with me a little bit ago, and I was able to read a chapter. So I'm going to have to pick it up. I told him, I was like, when you're reading stuff, let me know so I can read it. So no, so far the quick chapter that I read was pretty good. So I'm interested to learn more.
Yeah, he's a great speaker. If you got a chance, like I said, Ryan Leak, Leveling Up. He's got a few other books that I think I'll dive into once I'm done with this one.
Yeah.
But part of what his conversation is it's around the way of building that confidence and then using your confidence, where even things like envy, right, become kind of really dangerous.
Yeah, they can be.
Yeah. So ultimately, I think the question is what's the risk we've been avoiding, right? And there's something to be said about how do we use our confidence, right? Because as we're growing, as we're becoming better leaders, we're building our confidence. But what's that next step? And this book has kind of helped me say, okay, and evaluate what risks am I looking to take. And it's funny because we were at, me and the kids and my wife, we just took a small trip. We were at Universal Studios.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Well, it is a good time. However, I don't know about you, but I have this ingrained fear of roller coasters. But my daughter, Lily, she absolutely loves them, right? So as she's gotten older, she wants to do more dangerous roller coasters. And we were going through Universal, and there's this roller coaster called the Jurassic one, the Velocicoaster.
Oh.
And it like she knows all the data. Like it goes upside down for 2 seconds straight. It has 12 loops, and it's just like, I mean, it's crazy. It's
She
intimidating.
researched the
Yeah,
that's
she
awesome.
researched the heck out of it. But she's like, okay, Dad, I want to do it. I was hoping she would say like she didn't want to, kind of like secretly like, let's not take that risk.
Yeah.
But she wanted to. And we got in line, right? We're doing this. We're building up towards that. And, all that fear that's ingrained in me, because I can't let it show because my 10-year-old daughter is like super hyped about this. So I ultimately end up on the ride, right? We go through the loops. We go through the coaster. I'm breathing a little bit more, right, than I thought I would. And then at the end of the ride, I realized that by taking that risk, by jumping on that with her, honestly, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like I had a good time.
So your risk or your fear of the roller coasters kind of turned into fun.
Yeah.
So risks can be fun.
It can. You turn that fear. You turn that fear into fun, and I think it's that fear that drives us from making those next decisions. Like we want to do these things. Like as leaders, I'd love to try this. Like maybe you are learning, but you're afraid to tell people you're learning, and try maybe some of those practical applications that come out of like say our podcast
Right.
or other things that they might be doing. But ultimately, right, we got off that roller coaster and we look at each other and it's like, let's do it again. Let's do it again. And we ended up riding
Awesome.
it like another, half dozen times. And then thank God it got delayed and, shut down and, we couldn't maybe take it the next one. But once we were able to kind of just overcome our fears, try it and find out that not only was
It's not
it
bad.
fun,
Yeah.
right, but then we were telling others that it was cool, right? Like there was another boy in line who probably didn't want to get on, but we're like, now we're encouraging others to do these things. And in the restaurants, that's what it's all about. It's like have the confidence to take those risks, show people that you can be successful, and then build the leaders around you to also look to do some of those same things. And I don't know if we always connect those dots for people.
I think you're right. And I think I do like your story too about the roller coaster. I mean, that's a good way to kind of tie it in. We avoid, just innately, we avoid risk. As humans, we don't want to be risky, and because risk, you're putting a lot on the line. You're putting yourself, you're putting your personality, you're putting all that stuff on the line for maybe a desirable outcome. Yeah. But now, in this sense, when it comes to your leadership and it comes to building that and growing that confidence, you can take those risks and be a little bit more forthcoming and be a little bit more excited almost about what can come out of it. So it actually reminds me of a story or a conversation rather that I had with our owner-operator, our boss. And I was just very interested in the business and the business plan, and we were just talking about it. And he goes, Riley, a lot of people tell me that I have delusional optimism. And I was like, okay, like tell me more. This sounds interesting. And he said that people think that I'm too risky or that I take a lot of risk or the things that I do are just inherently risky. And he said, but in my wildest dreams, never would have thought that my risks would have paid off tenfold or whatever, and that really stuck with me. I wrote it down and it's, stuck with me like delusional optimism. And how I feel that what that means is that you're not afraid to take risks, delusional risks that, and you're optimistic that it's going to work. And so I think when we are faced with those fears, let's be delusional and let's try it and let's be risky. Let's be delusional and let's be optimistic about what could come from trying those things.
It's a valid point because I think just as I've grown in this career, the optimism wasn't always there. It was more of that pessimism, right? Like those can'ts. Well, it's not going to, or I'm going to fail, or like why bother, right?
Self-doubt.
Or it just is like it's that doubt. We doubt each other. We doubt our team. So yeah, to have some delusional optimism, right?
It just rolls off the tongue, kind of like delusional optimism. It's something that is just
right?
Crazy,
You
but
live
it might
in this
work.
world,
Yeah.
right? Of just like, oh my, rainbows and butterflies, and like everything's going to be perfect, and regardless. But I think that's okay, and I think as leaders, we want to see, like me as a leader, I want to see our people take some of those risks, right? Like, come to me and say, hey, we're going to try these things, or hey, here's what the benefit of it, or hey, I did take this risk and it ended up panning out and it worked because, like, what if it does work?
Yeah. What's crazy is when we get comfortable and we don't be risky or don't take those risks, then that leads us to more of an irrelevancy type leader. And those leaders don't necessarily move the needle or have those breakthrough results or lead the people they want to lead because they're comfortable in their own little pocket of results.
Yeah.
So being able to push those boundaries is really great.
It's funny you mentioned plateauing. It reminds me of the Army saying, where complacency kills. And we've actually, in January, we got challenged as an organization. Well, I felt we got challenged as an organization. We had the opportunity to have Steve join us from another organization where he was really just kind of diving into every system and routine and our people, right?
Yeah.
Within our organization as he's learning to help run his organization and their organization. And it was funny because he asked a lot of really good questions.
Perspective changing questions.
Man, like really like, hey, why are you doing this type questions, right? And for me, I was very open to these things. Like I loved having it. And I told him flat out, like, I learned just as much about our organization and him, right? Than he hopefully learned from us.
Yeah.
But years ago, it would have been more of an ego thing. Like I'm going to tell you, like, years ago, I probably wouldn't have welcomed him with open arms, right? And I would have had this ego of like, why are you asking it?
Let alone letting him question you.
Oh, yeah.
Not only getting our secrets and how we do things, but also you're going to question what I'm doing? That's, the ego part.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it was funny because like as we're going around and as he's talking to the leaders within our organization, you could tell that some of the things that he asked, people, you could see the ego in some of the answers, or at least the kind of defense mechanism. And he'd be like, well, no, we do this. Or they'd be quick to answer instead of staying curious. And I know we've talked about that, right? But like having that ability to bring somebody in and really question us is kind of like what happens in restaurants all the time when it comes to, guests maybe questioning that or giving feedback or things that we might take, defensively. I didn't like my sandwich. I didn't like this. I didn't get what I ordered, right?
Yeah.
And our teams can be really quick to say, well, you didn't order it, or you didn't do this, or
place blame on everybody else or other external things rather than themselves.
It's true. We have inspectors that come in, right, from the restaurant. They come and they say, whether it's a food safety visit or a mystery shop type thing or whatever that inspection might be, we really take things very personally. And I get it. Right, we
hard.
Pour our heart and souls into the restaurants. We pour our heart and souls into the job that we do, regardless of what industry you're in or the listener might be in. We give it everything we've got, and for people to question that can really hurt our ego.
Yeah.
So I've learned over the years that as we've put our ego aside, and I know you're learning the same things, as we put our ego aside and we stay curious and we stay open to feedback, it just creates a lot more. It just creates a lot more opportunity for us to grow.
Personally and professionally, this stuff that we're talking about can also be used in your relationships, your, any other extracurriculars that you're a part of. Like the stuff we're talking about isn't just for work. So, and that's the other cool part. And you said ego, and it can harm our ego. The chapter that I was able to read, it pointed out comparison, right? And the difference between comparison and envy. So I know it's not ego, but the comparison there is good to use to kind of gauge where you are and what you could possibly do better, how to get better as a leader, as a performer. Where envy is placing blame and why can't I have what they have? Where the question should be, how can I have what they have? So that was something that stuck out to me from that.
Yeah, I think we grow up in a world where comparison is everything, right? We want to be like the Joneses. We want to have the new shiny car. We want to have
That's
all
the
of this
saying.
stuff.
That's the saying that I was trying to remember earlier. Yeah. Yes, earlier we were talking, right, planning this episode, and he said something. He had a saying. I was like, gosh, I had a saying that went with that, and it was keeping up with the Joneses.
Perfect. But yeah, the saying keeping up with the Joneses is true in our everyday life. And I think we can use that, though, to our advantage by learning more about the comparison versus ego. So, you bring up a very good point there.
Yeah, well, thanks.
Yeah.
What a great conversation about, building and growing our confidence, in whatever area that you're in, whether it's the restaurant industry or any other leadership role. Sports is another big one that has a lot of, leadership attributes. So wherever you're from, wherever you're, listening, we hope this episode really helped you. And we have a challenge for you. Our challenge to you is, what risks are you going to take after this episode to build and continue to grow your confidence? Ask yourself, how will I get better?
Yeah, and there's plenty of risks that I think we just kind of sweep under the rug, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might have a big risk that you've been waiting for. You might have a small risk that you've been waiting for. Maybe it's just, going to your leadership and being honest with your struggles, telling them the things that you wish you knew that maybe you don't. Maybe there's been hard conversations that you've been avoiding. Maybe there's just, that small example of, hey, what do I want to get off my chest so I can feel better? And go into those conversations with the intent of you trying to be better and trying to make whoever that person that the conversation with better as well. So, honesty is okay. Having an honest approach and taking some risks. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So maybe today's the day you're going to take that risk.
A lot of the times we get stuck in the mentality of the fear we talked about this episode and what if it doesn't work? I'm going to fail, the self-doubt. We challenge you to think the other way. What if it does work? Have that delusional optimism that those risks and those conversations and all the things that Eric just listed will work and will provide growth and opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the time. We look forward to seeing you next week as we continue our journey together.
Absolutely. See ya.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas. We hope today's episode inspired fresh ideas for your leadership journey. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and keep learning with us as we continue to explore leadership in the QSR world. Until next time, take care and lead well.